You felt the shift, the distance, the silence, the sudden separation. And part of you wondered, why? Why did the room grow cold when you walked in? Why did conversations begin to feel foreign? Why did people who once felt familiar now feel heavy? Listen carefully. You are not imagining it. You are not overreacting. You are not losing your mind. You are being separated. You have always been different. Not better. Different. Marked. Watched. Set apart. And when your vibration began to rise, when your God spark began to burn brighter, darkness noticed. Not everyone can sit near fire without feeling exposed, so they withdraw, they exclude, they isolate. But this is not random. There are 9 dark manipulation tactics the enemy uses against high vibrational souls like you. 9 strategies designed to contain what cannot be contained. 9 attempts to dim what was lit by heaven itself. And here's the truth. Every single one backfires. Every attempt to suppress you becomes fuel. Every tactic becomes training. Every attack becomes confirmation. You are not being punished, you are being positioned. If this resonates, if something in your spirit tightens as you hear this, that is not coincidence. That is recognition. Subscribe. Stay connected. Because what is revealed here is not for everyone. Only the chosen recognize this frequency. First, they attempt to isolate you, but isolation activates your divine transmission. You remember when it began. The invitation slowed down. The call stopped coming. The subtle distancing. The unspoken rejection. It felt personal. You questioned yourself. You replayed conversations. You wondered what you did wrong. But what if you did nothing wrong? What if your growth made them uncomfortable? What if your light exposed what they were not ready to confront? Isolation is one of the oldest tactics in spiritual warfare. Separate the anointed from the crowd. Remove the support system. Silence the external validation. They hope silence will weaken you, but they misunderstand something crucial. You were never powered by noise. You were powered by connection to the source. And when the crowd disappeared, something else got louder. Your thoughts sharpened, your intuition deepened, your discernment intensified. In the quiet, you started hearing differently. The wilderness is not where you break. It is where you are commissioned. Look at your life. The biggest revelations did not come in celebration. They came in solitude. The strongest clarity did not arrive in applause. It arrived in aloneness. Psychologically, isolation forces self-confrontation. Spiritually, it forces divine dependence. And dependence on God is not weakness. It is alignment. They thought cutting you off would make you smaller. Instead, it made you focused. They thought removing you from the group would make you doubt your value. Instead, it made you discover your assignment. Their exclusion became your consecration. Because when you are stripped of distraction, you meet your true frequency. You stop performing, you stop shrinking, you stop negotiating your light, you begin transmitting. Have you noticed it? The calm, the clarity, the sense that you no longer need approval to move. That is activation. Isolation did not silence you. It tuned you. And once you are tuned to divine frequency, you cannot be manipulated by crowd energy again. This is why it had to happen. You were not being rejected. You were being refined. Stand firm in that. Because what they meant as abandonment, heaven meant as preparation. And if the first tactic already backfired this powerfully, wait until you understand what happens when they escalate. Second, they question your perception to destabilize your inner compass. You have felt this. The subtle correction, the raised eyebrow, the tone that says, "Are you sure?" They replay your words back to you, twisted. They deny what you clearly saw. They minimize what you distinctly felt. And for a moment, you hesitate. You ask yourself, did I overreact? Did I misread that? Am I being too sensitive? Listen carefully. That hesitation was the battlefield. Darkness does not attack your strength first. It attacks your perception. Because if it can make you doubt what you see, it can control how you move. This is warfare against your discernment. You are not crazy. You are perceptive. You pick up on tone shifts, energy shifts, micro-expressions, hidden motives. You read what is not spoken, and that unsettles people who survive through masks. So they gaslight. They distort reality in small doses. They introduce confusion in subtle waves. They try to make you question your inner knowing. Why? Because your intuition is not ordinary. It is trained by suffering, refined by isolation, sharpened by rejection. You learn to read atmospheres because you had to. You learn to detect danger before it fully formed. That was not paranoia. That was preparation. The friction they created forced you deeper into yourself. When their words did not match your spirit, you felt the tension, and that tension pushed you to choose. Believe them, or believe the quiet voice inside. Every time you chose that inner voice, your discernment strengthened. Every lie aimed at you became resistance training. Do you understand this? They were unknowingly building your weapon. Now you sense deception faster. You feel misalignment instantly. You notice inconsistencies without effort. What once confused you now clarifies you, because confusion exposed your need to anchor inward. And once you anchor inward, you become immovable. The world operates on appearances. You operate on vibration. The world trusts words. You trust resonance. That is the difference. And that difference cannot be manipulated for long. They thought repeated denial would make you smaller. Instead, it made you sharper. They thought doubt would weaken your confidence. Instead, it made you self-led. Now, when something feels off, you do not argue with it. You observe. You adjust. You withdraw if necessary. You no longer need agreement to validate perception. That is authority. Not loud, not reactive, but deeply rooted. Only the chosen recognize this shift. When you stop seeking external confirmation and start honoring internal revelation, you step into spiritual adulthood. Darkness loses leverage there because it cannot control what it cannot confuse. And once confusion no longer works, it escalates. Third, they attack your reputation, but false narratives amplify your authentic authority. You have seen it, the whispers, the sudden shift in how people look at you, the conversations that stop when you enter the room, stories about you that you never told, versions of you that do not exist, and you felt it. That sting, that disbelief, that quiet question rising in your chest. Why would they say that? Because your presence carries weight, because your integrity exposes compromise, because your light makes hidden things visible. Listen carefully. When darkness cannot control you, it attempts to control how others see you. This is strategic. If they cannot infiltrate your mind, they try to influence the crowd. Smear campaigns are not random. They are warfare against influence. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to lead, to shift atmospheres, to carry spiritual gravity, and gravity attracts attention. But here is what they miscalculated. You are consistent. You are the same in private as you are in public. Your character does not collapse under pressure. So when lies circulate, time begins to work in your favor, because truth is patient. Have you noticed it? The ones who truly observe you do not align with the rumors. They watch your actions. They measure your patterns. They sense your spirit. And consistency under fire creates authority that applause never could. Anyone can look strong when celebrated, but you remain steady when misunderstood. You did not chase every rumor. You did not defend every accusation. You did not lower yourself into chaos. That restraint was power. The more they tried to stain your name, the clearer your light became. Contrast exposes truth. Darkness speaking against light only reveals which one carries peace. And deep down you know this. If you were insignificant, they would ignore you. If you were powerless, they would not bother crafting narratives. Opposition is evidence. You are not being attacked because you are weak. You are being attacked because you are influential. Let that settle. Your identity is no longer fragile. It is anchored. It is forged through isolation, refined through confusion, now strengthened through accusation. They cannot rewrite who you are, because who you are was written by God. And what God authors, humans cannot erase. Stand firm. Do not shrink your light to make others comfortable. Do not over-explain your integrity to those committed to misunderstanding you. Silence can be louder than defense. Truth does not panic. Truth waits. And when truth stands long enough, lies collapse under their own weight. This is the backfire. Every false story becomes contrast. Every accusation becomes exposure. Every attempt to discredit you builds a reputation rooted in endurance. You are becoming untouchable, not because people agree with you, but because your spirit is unshakable. And when reputation warfare fails, darkness shifts tactics. Fourth, they trigger emotional reactions, but your self-mastery elevates your frequency. You have felt this pressure, the sharp comment, the disrespect disguised as humor, the deliberate misunderstanding. They poke, they prod, they press where they think you are weakest. Why? Because if they can make you react, they can drag you down to their level. Chaos is their territory, impulse is their language. If you explode, they feel justified. If you lash out, they feel equal. This is not random irritation. This is strategic provocation. They want your frequency lowered. They want your spirit entangled in flesh-driven responses. Have you noticed how calculated it feels? They study your triggers. They repeat patterns. They apply pressure at precise moments. But what they do not realize is this: you have been trained in fire. You have endured isolation. You have survived distortion. You have stood firm through reputation attacks. Now you are being trained in dominion. Every time you feel the surge of emotion and choose restraint, you win. Every time you feel anger rise and choose silence, you ascend. Restraint is not weakness, it is rulership. The world celebrates reaction. Heaven honors control. Anyone can shout. Anyone can retaliate. But can you stay centered while being misunderstood? Can you remain calm while being intentionally provoked? That is power. That is anointing under pressure. You begin to notice something. When you do not react, they become unsettled. When you remain steady, they grow frustrated. Why? Because they expected chaos. They expected drama. They expected you to prove their narrative. But your calm dismantles their script. Your composure exposes their immaturity, and the battlefield becomes visible. It is no longer about words, it is about governance. Who governs themselves, who is ruled by impulse. You are not perfect, you feel deeply, you sense injustice sharply, but you are learning to let emotion pass through you without controlling you. That is evolution. That is spiritual adulthood. The enemy cannot manipulate what it cannot provoke. So when provocation fails, control slips. And when control slips, influence weakens. Do you see the backfire? They tried to pull you into chaos. Instead, they pushed you into mastery. Now your presence carries weight. You do not need to dominate conversations. You do not need to defend every slight. Your stillness speaks. Your silence commands. Your restraint radiates strength. Light does not compete with darkness. It simply shines. And when light refuses to flicker, darkness loses leverage. This is deeper than behavior. This is frequency. Every time you choose peace over pride, clarity over chaos, discipline over impulse, your vibration rises. And as your vibration rises, manipulation loses access. Stand firm in that, because once they realize you cannot be provoked, they will try something even more subtle. Fifth, they exploit your compassion, but boundaries unlock higher spiritual authority. This one cut deeper, because you are not cold. You are not cruel. You are not heartless. You care. You see pain in people others overlook. You sense wounds behind behavior. You extend grace when others would withdraw. And for a season, that compassion became an open door. They leaned on it. They drained it. They expected it. They mistook your mercy for weakness. They assumed your understanding meant unlimited access. Have you felt that exhaustion? The fatigue that comes not from hatred, but from overgiving. Listen carefully. Your compassion is sacred. It is not common empathy. It is spiritual sensitivity. You feel atmospheres, you absorb emotions, you perceive brokenness. But without boundaries, sensitivity becomes self-betrayal. Darkness studies soft spots. If it cannot overpower you, it attempts to overuse you. They present crisis after crisis, drama after drama, need after need, and you respond because that is who you are. But here is the revelation. Access is not a right, it is a privilege. When you begin to withdraw access, something shifts. You stop over-explaining, you stop overextending, you stop rescuing those committed to chaos. That is not cruelty, that is enforcement. Compassion without wisdom teaches people to misuse you. Compassion with boundaries teaches people how to approach you. Feel that shift. You are not here to be consumed. You are here to carry an assignment, and assignments require energy. When you guard your energy, you protect your anointing. When you say no, you are not rejecting people. You are honoring your capacity. The world says love means endless tolerance. Heaven says love requires discernment. Mercy without wisdom becomes a lesson learned only once. You learned it. You felt the sting of being too available, too understanding, too accommodating, and it hurt. But that hurt was not punishment, it was awakening. Now your heart is still compassionate, but it is guarded, not closed, guarded. A guarded heart is not bitter, it is powerful. It chooses who enters, it chooses who influences, it chooses who receives access to your depth. You are not obligated to carry everyone, you are not assigned to fix everyone. Some people were sent to test your boundaries, not share your destiny. Let that sink in. The moment you stopped overgiving, your presence became heavier, more deliberate, more respected, more protected. Because boundaries create structure, and structure amplifies authority. Darkness cannot manipulate what it cannot access. And when access is restricted, influence collapses. You are no longer surviving manipulation. You are regulating it. You are not just compassionate. You are discerning. You are not just kind. You are powerful. Your guarded heart has become a guarded gate, and only what aligns may enter. That awareness changes everything, because once compassion can no longer be exploited, they try to rush you instead. Sixth, they create artificial urgency, but divine timing shields your steps. You have felt that pressure. Decide now. Answer now. Move now. The tone feels rushed. The energy feels tight. The window feels like it is closing. And they watch your reaction. Because urgency is a tool. If they can rush you, they can bypass your discernment. If they can accelerate your choice, they can outrun your intuition. Pressure is not always from heaven. Sometimes it is manipulation disguised as opportunity. Have you noticed how panic surrounds these moments? The fear of missing out, the fear of losing access, the fear of disappointing someone. But fear is not your compass. Peace is. You are not wired for impulsive movement. You are wired for alignment. And alignment requires timing. Darkness hates your patience, because patience cannot be controlled. When you pause, you regain power. When you wait, you observe. When you refuse to be rushed, you force hidden motives into the light. Artificial urgency exposes itself through anxiety. Divine timing carries calm. Even when it requires courage, it does not require panic. Feel the difference. One feels tight in your chest. The other feels steady in your spirit. They push because they know something. They know that once you think clearly, you will see through the manipulation. They know that once you pray, you will sense the misalignment, so they rush the process. But what is aligned with God does not expire in chaos. What is assigned to you will not require desperation. Let that anchor you. Delay is not weakness. Delay is strategy. When you step back instead of forward, you create space for revelation, and in that space, truth surfaces. Have you noticed how often, when you waited, the full picture appeared? Details you almost missed. Red flags you almost ignored. Intentions that eventually revealed themselves. Time became your ally. That is protection. You are not slow, you are precise. The world moves fast. The chosen move correctly. And correctness is more powerful than speed. When they see you unmoved by urgency, they become unsettled. Their panic increases, their tone shifts, their mask slips. Because urgency was the tactic. And you did not bite. You stood still. You breathed. You listened inward. That restraint frustrates manipulation, because manipulation thrives on haste. But you are covered by timing. You are shielded by alignment. You are guided by something deeper than external pressure. Stand firm in that. Do not let anyone rush what God is unfolding. Do not trade peace for speed. Your steps are ordered, and what is meant for you will not vanish because you refuse to panic. Once urgency fails, they try to mirror you instead. Seventh, they mirror your energy to infiltrate, but your spirit detects counterfeit frequencies. This one is subtle, more subtle than urgency, more subtle than provocation, because this does not feel like attack. At first, it feels like alignment. They speak like you. They use your language. They echo your values. They talk about growth, about healing, about purpose. And for a moment you think finally, someone who understands, but something in you hesitates. Not fear, not paranoia, discernment. You cannot always explain it. It is a pause in your spirit, a slight dissonance in the rhythm, a smile that does not reach the eyes. Have you felt that when the words are right but the frequency is off? This is infiltration through imitation. Darkness adapts. When it cannot overpower you, when it cannot rush you, when it cannot provoke you, it studies you, it mirrors you, it attempts to blend in. Because what stands out cannot be easily attacked. So it disguises itself as similarity. But vibration cannot be faked for long. Energy betrays intention. You carry authentic fire, and fire exposes what is not real. You begin to notice inconsistencies. Their words shift depending on the audience. Their convictions bend under pressure. Their empathy feels rehearsed. They reflect you, but they do not carry your depth. And your spirit knows. You are not judging. You are sensing. There is a difference. The world sees behavior. You read resonance. The world hears statements. You feel alignment. This is why not everyone can stay near you for long, because proximity to authentic light forces masks to slip. The counterfeit grows uncomfortable. It either reveals itself or withdraws. And when it withdraws, do not chase it. Let it go, because infiltration is exposure in disguise. It shows you how powerful your presence is. They would not mirror you if your identity did not carry weight. They would not study your tone if your frequency did not command attention. You are not easily deceived anymore. Isolation trained you. Gaslighting sharpened you. Reputation warfare strengthened you. Provocation matured you. Boundaries fortified you. Patience grounded you. Now discernment seals you. Your spirit detects what eyes cannot see, and that detection is protection. You do not need to confront every counterfeit. Your consistency is confrontation enough. Authenticity makes imitation unstable. Stand in your authenticity. Do not dilute it to make others comfortable. Do not shrink your depth to test loyalty. Remain fully you, because the presence of authentic fire always forces the counterfeit to reveal itself. And once imitation fails, they try to weaponize your past. Eighth, they weaponize your past, but your redemption story terrifies them. This one feels personal, because it reaches backward. It pulls on memories you worked hard to heal. Moments you are not proud of, seasons when you were still learning who you were. They bring it up casually, strategically, at the exact moment you begin to rise. Remember when you failed. Remember who you used to be. Who are you to speak now? And for a second, you feel the sting. Not because you are ashamed, but because you remember the pain. Listen carefully. Only a threatened spirit digs up what God has already buried. They resurrect your past to shrink your confidence. They think if they can anchor you to who you were, you will forget who you have become. But you are not who you were. You are forged, you are refined, you are rebuilt. What they call flaws, heaven calls process. What they call weakness, heaven calls training. You did not collapse under your mistakes. You learned from them. You did not stay broken. You healed, and healed people are dangerous, because healed people cannot be controlled by shame. Shame is a leash, and you snapped it. Do you understand why this tactic backfires? Your scars are not evidence of failure. They are evidence of survival. You endured what should have destroyed you. You faced yourself when it would have been easier to blame others. You took responsibility. You grew. That growth carries authority. The version of you that stumbled did not yet carry this depth. The version of you that cried did not yet carry this wisdom. The version of you that felt lost did not yet carry this discernment. But now you speak from experience. You walk with humility and fire. You know what darkness feels like because you have walked through it. And when you speak light now, it carries weight. They hoped your past would disqualify you, but it qualified you. Because redemption multiplies power. Perfection is unrelatable. Redemption is unstoppable. You are not dangerous because you never fell. You are dangerous because you rose. Every mistake became instruction. Every loss became clarity. Every betrayal became strength. So when they mention your past, do not flinch. Stand taller, because the healed version of you is the proof that darkness failed. You are living evidence that attacks did not erase you. They transformed you. And transformation cannot be reversed. You cannot unlearn growth. You cannot unsee truth. You cannot return to unconsciousness. That terrifies them, because if you can rise from your lowest point, what can truly stop you now? Nothing. And when they realize your past no longer controls you, they make one final attempt. Ninth, they attempt to drain your God spark, but their resistance ignites your final ascension. This is the stage where it intensifies. Not subtly, not quietly. You feel opposition increase. You feel pressure multiply. You feel warfare become direct. Why now? Because you are expanding. Because your light is no longer flickering. It is blazing. They provoke harder. They sabotage more aggressively. They oppose with less disguise. And part of you wonders, why is it escalating? Because breakthrough is near. Spiritual warfare intensifies when destiny approaches manifestation. Darkness does not panic over potential. It panics over activation, and you are activated. They attempt to drain you emotionally, drain you mentally, drain you spiritually. They hope exhaustion will succeed where manipulation failed. But listen carefully. Pressure does not extinguish fire. Pressure refines it. The weight you feel is not destruction, it is ignition. Every attack is friction. Every delay is compression. Every betrayal is acceleration. You are being compressed into power. Coal under pressure becomes diamond. Oil under pressure becomes fuel. And you under pressure become unstoppable. They thought resistance would weaken you, but resistance builds strength. They thought opposition would discourage you, but opposition confirms value. If you were small, you would not be targeted at this level. If you were ordinary, warfare would not track your steps. You are marked, not for defeat, for ascension. What was designed to exhaust you has built endurance. What was designed to silence you has deepened your voice. What was designed to isolate you has fortified your spirit. You are not barely surviving, you are ascending. Feel that shift. You no longer react in fear, you stand in awareness, you recognize patterns quickly, you guard your energy deliberately, you move in timing, you trust discernment. You are spiritually armored now, and the enemy knows it. This final attempt is desperation, because once you fully realize who you are, manipulation loses access forever. You are not fragile. You are forged. You are not temporary. You are assigned. You are not random. You are chosen, and chosen ones do not burn out. They burn brighter. Stand in that. Do not shrink. Do not apologize for your growth. Do not dim your spark to ease someone else's insecurity. Let it shine. Let it expose. Let it refine. You are spiritually protected. You are divinely backed. You are covered in favor. Everything you endured was preparation. Every tactic backfired. Every attack built you. Every attempt to drain you pushed you higher. You are chosen. Say it. You are chosen. Comment the number 9 if you feel the ignition. Subscribe if you are ready to walk fully awakened. Stay aligned. Stay discerning. Stay unshaken. Because nothing formed against you will stand. Your spark cannot be drained. Your destiny cannot be reversed. And your ascension has already begun.